Welcome back, ECHL fans, to another episode of the ECHL Insider. I am your host, Garrett Hunter, and wow, what an incredible week of hockey we just witnessed around the ECHL. Let's get you caught up with some of the biggest scores from around the league. Last week on Super Bowl Sunday, it was the Bloomington Bison and Fort Wayne Comets. How about the Bison going into Fort Wayne, getting a 5-0 upset win over the Comets? A very impressive road victory for that Bloomington team. Also in the Central Division, the Fort Wayne Comets and the Toledo Walleye. Will preview their game later in the episode, but it was Toledo going into Fort Wayne as well Saturday night with a 5-4 victory over the Comets. So Fort Wayne, yes, disappointing. They dropped back-to-back at home on back-to-back days, but they definitely have some big games coming up that we will preview later in the episode. And finally, the Indy Fuel. Talk about upsets. They go into Wheeling, which is a really hard place to win for teams this year. They get a 3-2 shootout victory. You know, something I think that this Indy team could hang their hat on, right? You play a really good Wheeling team. You're with them all game, and then you get the win in the shootout, and they will rematch Wheeling on home ice on Wednesday night. So should be a good rematch there and a big game for this Indy Fuel team, currently in fourth place in the Central Division. Well, with that, let's get you straight to the top 5 games of the week. We're now in mid-February, which is just crazy to think about. Playoffs are heating up. Teams need points, right? Trying to make their playoff push, and every point's going to matter down the stretch. We know that from previous seasons, so let's get right to it. At number 5, the Indy Fuel and the Fort Wayne Comets, a home-and-home Friday and Saturday night. Friday will be in Fort Wayne, and then the teams hop on the bus and go to Indy for Saturday night's matchup in the Fishers Event Center. And, right, when two heated rivals like this match up, it's always interesting. I think I've really liked this Indy Fuel team's game these last few matchups. Right, we talked about Wheeling. They played them very competitively, got the win. But Fort Wayne, right, they've been a little beat up. 2 disappointing losses on home ice last week. We talked about they are going to be looking for some continuity, something for them to hang their hat on. And obviously, they're number 2 in the Central Division right now. They know that they're capable, right? So if you can get back-to-back wins over a rival like the Fuel, that would also be very big for this Indy, for this Fort Wayne team over their rival in the Indy Fuel. Up next at number 4, the Maine Mariners head south to face the Florida Everblades in a 3-game series Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday night, all in Estero. Should be a really good series and a really big test for this Maine group. We talk about it a lot when teams come from out of division to play teams like the Everblades, who are very physical and have a hostile home ice advantage, right? It's a measuring stick type of game, it feels like, for Maine, right? They're in playoff position right now in the North Division, but you're going up against the Everblades, who won 3 consecutive Kelly Cups, one of the best teams in the league again this year, made the Eastern Conference Finals last year. Through and through, it's all success for the Florida Everblades. So when you go into an environment like that, you get to see what your team's made of. And I think this is a big test for the Maine Mariners and a good test for them to see, where they need to improve going into hopefully a playoff run for them, hopefully making the top 4 in the North Division. But, you want to talk about a big weekend. I think this is one the Mariners have circled, and they'll be ready to go for them. But then for the Everblades, you talk about this team that's just stacked right now, just loads of scoring up and down the roster. Let's look at Jordan Sambrook, right? Defenseman. He is a plus 25 and 22 points from the back end right now for the Florida Everblades. One of the best defensemen in the ECHL. Sambrook has shown that season in and season out, whether it was in Florida or Kansas City. And so it should be fun to see him go up against this Mariners team as well this weekend. Up next at number 3, the Reading Royals and Wheeling Nailers get reacquainted again. Definitely a rivalry forming between these two teams, and they play 3 straight games in West Banco Arena Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night should be a really good 3-game series between the top 2 teams right now in the North Division. Reading tied with Adirondack for second place and Wheeling in first place. So should be a really good series. I think, again, you look at, down the stretch, obviously these 2 teams could meet in the playoffs, right? If not the first round, maybe the second round even. So, these 2 teams, I think they're definitely taking notes. They obviously know how each other play, right? They've met a lot this season, but taking notes on, how they match up against them, what matchups they like, what matchups they want to stay away from, what line to put out against what line, stuff like that. Scheming up the other team is a big deal when you see a rival like this. So many games. So Royals and Nailers, 3 straight games. I think you'll see a lot of that, a lot of coaching adjustments, from previous matchups, making sure that their teams have the best scheme, best skill set ready to go for a 3-game series in 3 days, which is obviously definitely tiring for both teams. At number 2, it is the Adirondack Thunder and the Atlanta Gladiators Friday and Saturday night. Really thrilled to see this non-division matchup, and I kind of circled the goaltending in this matchup. You got Jeremy Brodeur, right, for the Adirondack Thunder, currently boasting a 2.35 goals against. And then you have the dynamic goalie duo for the Atlanta Gladiators, TJ Semptenfelter and Ethan Heider. 2 of the best goalies in the league. They both play for Atlanta. Really strong, really talented in that position. And, Atlanta also, talk about defense, talk about keeping the puck out of their net. They have a really good defenseman as well, who can also score in Chad Nychuk, right? He is 36 points this season from the back end for Atlanta and boasting a plus 26 as well. So you talk about a guy, guys who can shut down that top line of your opponent. Nychuk is one of those players that, Matt Ginn can trust. He's a high plus player, one of the best in plus minus in the entire league. So definitely something to look out for Atlanta. And just what a great season Chad Nychuk has had so far right now in Duluth, Georgia. Well, at our top game of the week, one of the best rivalries in the ECHL right now, the Fort Wayne Komets and Toledo Walleye will do it on Sunday evening from downtown Toledo. They met last week. We talked about it with a 5-4 win for the Walleye. That one was in Fort Wayne. This one is in the Huntington Center. Should be a great game. These 2 teams hate each other. They've met in the playoffs last year. They see each other a lot. They're in the top 2 spots in the Central Division. So you want to talk about like best on best hockey. It's these 2 teams, and just always fun when they meet. Always physical. Always a great game. And we got to talk about the leading scorers. We've talked about them a lot, but we can't talk about them enough. Brandon Hawkins for the Toledo Walleye, leading the league in scoring right now with 54 points. And then on the other side for the Fort Wayne Komets, Kirill Chutayev with 37 points for Fort Wayne. So 2 guys who definitely know how to put the puck in the back of the net, with Chutayev for Fort Wayne, Hawkins for Toledo. Should be a great game and always an exciting rivalry when we get to see the Komets face off with the Walleye. Well, that will do it for our top 5 games of the week, but make sure to stick around now for our fight of the week. You won't want to miss it. Reed Lebster and Devin Poliani getting into it. Utah versus Tahoe. And these 2 teams, these 2 players waited 34 seconds to get into the fight in this matchup. The third of 3 games between Utah and Tahoe got really physical, and a really good scrap right off the drop of the puck, almost 34 seconds in. So we hope you'll enjoy that. Make sure to leave us a comment below. We love to hear from you. Make sure to subscribe, and we will see you next week for more ECHL action.
It's it up to Friesen. And now we got a fight. Poliani and Lebster right off the rip. Poliani jamming away. Lebster trading rights. Buckets flying. Look at this scrap. Poliani gets him to the ground. What a start to the hockey game on this Saturday.